Santa Claus the movie was 1985's ambitious attempt to do for Santa what Superman did for The Man of Steel. Produced by the same father-son team behind the Christopher Reeve Superman films, this lavish fantasy featured Dudley Moore, John Lithgow, and some of the most elaborate practical effects of the decade. Released during one of the most iconic years in pop culture history, this movie bombed at the box office, but became a beloved holiday tradition for those of us who grew up in the 80s. Here are 12 magical facts about Santa Claus the movie that'll transport you back to 1985. 1. Santa Claus the movie cost between $30 and $50 million to produce, a massive budget for 1985. The Salkinds wanted to create the definitive Santa origin story, using the same grand scale that made Superman successful, but the film earned only $23 million domestically. 1985 was an absolutely incredible year for movies. Back to the Future dominated the summer, The Goonies became a cult classic, and audiences had options everywhere. Santa Claus the movie opened on November 27th and couldn't compete, but for kids who saw it that Christmas, it became part of our holiday tradition. Sometimes box office doesn't measure a film's true impact on the people who love it. 2. Dudley Moore, already famous for Arthur and 10, had a baby grand piano installed in his dressing room at Pinewood Studios. Whenever he wasn't on set, he played music, a habit from his days as a jazz musician and composer. Moore came from a serious music background before comedy and film. Having that piano on set kept him connected to his musical roots during the long production schedule. Moore brought genuine warmth to Patch, despite the character's mistakes, making him sympathetic rather than just foolish. That emotional honesty came from Moore's own artistic soul. 3. The magical candy canes that make people fly were created using reindeer feed as the secret ingredient. In the film's climax, BZ eats multiple candy canes to escape the police and floats uncontrollably into space, a surprisingly dark ending for a children's movie. Those candy canes were the ultimate 80s movie prop, colorful, magical, and slightly dangerous. The film established that when the candy canes get warm, they explode, adding real stakes to the final chase. John Lithgow's fate, floating into the cold vacuum of space while still alive, is genuinely unsettling. It's a villain death that would never make it into a modern family film, but we 80s kids could handle it. 4. Santa Claus the movie was filmed at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire, England, between August and November 1984. While the crew built Santa's workshop on the iconic 007 stage, Nintendo was preparing to launch the NES in America, which would arrive in stores exactly 1 year later. Think about what was happening in 1985 while this movie was being made and released. The Nintendo Entertainment System launched in September, revolutionizing video games. Back to the Future became a cultural phenomenon. Live Aid concerts brought the world together. Microsoft released Windows 1.0. New Coke became a marketing disaster. Madonna's Like a Virgin tour made her a superstar. 1985 was peak 80s, and Santa Claus the movie was trying to capture that magical anything is possible energy. 5. The animatronic reindeer heads used in close-ups each weighed 10 pounds. These weren't simple puppets. They had working eyes, mouths, and facial expressions that required multiple puppeteers to operate during filming. This was pre-CGI filmmaking at its finest. Every reindeer expression, every ear twitch, every blink was performed by craftspeople operating heavy mechanical heads. The flying sequences used the same front projection screen technique created by Zoran Perisic for the Superman movies. It took 4 weeks just to shoot those scenes. This is the kind of practical movie magic that made 80s fantasy films feel tangible and real. 6. John Lithgow later called Santa Claus, quote, one of the tackiest movies I've ever been in, but admitted it's huge in England where it became a holiday tradition. His over-the-top performance as evil toy manufacturer BZ is pure 80s villain gold. Lithgow is chewing scenery like it's Christmas dinner, and it's glorious. BZ is greedy, dangerous, and completely ridiculous. Exactly what you would want in an 80s kids movie villain. Lithgow understood the assignment: be entertainingly evil without being genuinely scary. His performance influenced every toy company villain that came after, from Toy Story's Sid to the Lego Movie's President Business. 7. David Huddleston was cast as Santa Claus for his naturally warm, grandfatherly presence. Director Jenna Zwart wanted a Santa who felt genuinely kind rather than just jolly. Someone children would actually want to sit on the lap of and trust. Huddleston brought real emotional depth to Santa. Watch the scenes where he's worried about Patch or determined to save the children. This isn't just a jolly fat man, it's someone who genuinely cares. Huddleston understood that Santa needed to feel like the kind of adult kids wish existed in their lives. That authenticity is why people remember this Santa so fondly. 8. Every single toy created for Santa's workshop scenes was handmade by the production team. When filming Wrapped, all the toys were donated to local children's hospitals and charities for Christmas. Hundreds of unique handcrafted toys finding homes with sick children. This is the kind of beautiful 80s filmmaking heart that doesn't get talked about enough. The production could have trashed those props or sold them, but instead they gave them to kids who needed Christmas magic most. It's fitting for a movie about the spirit of giving. These weren't mass-produced items. They were one-of-a-kind creations made by skilled craftsmen. 9. Santa Claus the movie premiered during one of the most significant years in 80s pop culture. The same month this film opened, We Are the World was dominating radio, Calvin and Hobbes debuted in newspapers, and the wreckage of the Titanic had just been discovered. For those of us who were kids in 1985, this was the year that everything peaked. The Nintendo we got for Christmas that year changed our lives. We watched Back to the Future in theaters and couldn't stop talking about it. We saw Live Aid on TV and witnessed Queen give the performance of their career. Madonna, Prince, Bruce Springsteen, Wham! Music was incredible. Pound Puppies, Transformers, He-Man. Our toys were legendary. Santa Claus the movie was part of that magical year when being a kid felt absolutely perfect. 10. Burgess Meredith, famous for playing Rocky's trainer Mickey and the Penguin in the 1960s Batman, brought gravitas to his role as the ancient elf who explains Santa's immortality and magical powers to the newly transformed couple. Meredith was 77 years old during filming and brought decades of acting experience to a role that could have been throwaway exposition. Instead, he made the ancient elf feel like he'd actually been alive for centuries, carrying the wisdom of ages. His scenes ground the fantasy in something that feels ancient and meaningful rather than just whimsical. 11. The visual effects team included veterans from the Superman films. Derek Meddings directing miniature effects, Roy Field on optical effects, and David Lane handling flying sequences. By 1985, their techniques were showing age compared to advancing technology, but their craftsmanship is undeniable. These were the same wizards who made Christopher Reeve fly convincingly. Watching Santa Claus the movie now, you can see the practical effects charm. Real miniatures, actual wirework, physical props. It has texture and weight that CGI sometimes lack. Was it perfect? No, but it was made by human hands and visible on screen, which gives it warmth that pure digital effects can't replicate. 12. While Santa Claus the movie flopped in America, it became a massive cult classic in the United Kingdom, where it airs every Christmas season. British audiences embraced it so completely that John Lithgow says that half his British recognition comes from this film alone. There's something about this movie that captured British Christmas spirit perfectly. Maybe it was filmed at Pinewood, maybe British kids just connected with it differently, but it became essential holiday viewing across the pond. In America, we had A Christmas Story and It's a Wonderful Life. In Britain, they had Santa Claus the movie. Different cultures, different classics, but the same warm memories of watching it every year with family. So there you have it. 12 magical facts about Santa Claus the movie that prove this wasn't just a box office disappointment, it was a heartfelt attempt to capture the wonder of Christmas through 80s movie magic. From 10-pound reindeer heads to candy canes that make you float into space, every element reflects the ambitious, anything is possible spirit of 1985. Which fact brought back the most memories? And here's the ultimate question for my fellow 80s kids. What do you remember most about 1985? Was it getting your first Nintendo? Seeing Back to the Future? Watching Live Aid? Or was it discovering Santa Claus the movie and making it part of your family's Christmas tradition. If you love deep dives in 80s holiday classics and want to relive the greatest decade ever, smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. I've got more nostalgic journeys back to when movies were magical, toys were incredible, and being a kid was the best thing in the world.